Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. Today's video is a continuation of talking about all the books that I read in December. If you didn't see part 1 to this video, it's where I talk about the 15 Christmas books that I read in December. Today we're going to talk about the 17 other books that I read. There's still a lot to talk about. I'm going to be losing my voice by the end of this. I might need another cup of coffee. So let's get into this. I'm not going to lie, the worst part about reading 32 books in a month, aside from the fact that it feels really impressive, is that I'm just really struggling to remember anything about the books that I read at the beginning of the month. The first book I read this month was called Killian by Natasha Knight. It's a dark romance with, so many triggers. All of the triggers that you can imagine. It's very heavy. There's a lot going on. I did enjoy the book, but seriously don't go into this one if you are not prepared to read about a lot of trauma that happens on page. But it's also quite a good smut book. So I don't really feel like I can say very much about what this book is about. It's kind of Beauty and the Beast, but if Beauty had a really traumatic home life, and if Beast also had a really traumatic home life. That's really all I can say about the book, but yeah, it's a dark romance. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. It's not for the faint-hearted, this one. The next book I read was Seatmate by Cara Bastone, and this is a total tonal shift from the last one, because it's about 2 people on a bus journey to New York, one of whom is going to visit his mother, the other is on her way to a very important job opportunity, and there's traffic. A lot of traffic. Things on that journey do not go smoothly. So this is book 3 in the Love Lines trilogy, and I really enjoyed reading this one. This is much more loosely connected to the previous 2, like it's nobody's brother or sister. I think the connection between this book and the first book is that one of the people in this book is friends with the main character of the first book, but I really enjoyed the banter between the 2 main characters. I just really liked Cara Bastone's writing in this series. I'd be willing to try and read some of her other stuff because I really enjoyed these, and it was a really surprising series for me. So yeah, I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. Because I really like these characters and how they sort of evolved over this really short journey together and going through different stuff, like accidentally sitting on an egg sandwich in your best suit. And normal people problems. Next up I read Sleep and Spirit by Courtney Thorne. This was an art copy sent to me in exchange for an honest review, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's about a princess who is sort of the first woman born to this royal caste of magic wielders for a very, very long time, and she's the only marriage prospect for any of the royal princes of other kingdoms. And when she was a child, her dad promised her hand in marriage to all 4 kingdoms, and in exchange she received a bit of power from each of the different elements. So she has a lot of power, but no freedom until she decides to run away at the start of the book. I don't really want to say any more than that because I do think that this is quite nice to sort of unravel the book as it goes. Everything that I've said so far is pretty much just the prologue, but 2 things. 1, Fire Daddy. We like Fire Daddy. And 2, I could watch the main character of this book burn down the world after that ending. I would cheer her on. This is not the type of main character who's just gonna live and let live. She's not gonna forgive you if you wrong her, so that's fun. I really am excited to read the next book in the series, and I'm kind of mad that I read this as an arc because now I have to wait forever for the second book to come out. So that's great. Next up I picked up Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which for some reason is incredibly hard for me to say, but I read it. To be honest, I don't exactly have very much to say about this book. I thought it was a cute coming of age story about these 2 boys who grow up together as friends and maybe become more than friends. It's definitely an exploration of sort of a discovery of self and sort of understanding people, because there's a lot to do with family relationships as well. I liked it, but I don't have all that much to say about it, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then we have probably the most disappointing book that I read this month, Emperor the Vampire by J. Kristoff. So I read it, and I am just a little bit disappointed. This book is set in a world where vampires are sort of running free and the scourge of everyone. And it's sort of told as a story within a story, so you have the main character as an older gent talking about his life and telling stories throughout. So it sort of changes up the timeline depending on which story he's telling at which particular time, and some of those were more interesting than others, and some of them were not interesting at all. I have to say that I found this lengthy and indulgent, and perhaps J. Kristoff needs a better editor to trim down some of the fat, because there is so much time spent talking, and at one point there is a description of a battle that is talked and talked about throughout the book, and it happens in like a couple of pages, and I'm like, no wait, put more pages into that. That would have been way more interesting than just hearing people talk about the same thing. I don't know why it's so big. Like, I can't think of anything that happened that made it this big, but it's huge. I'm not sure why. It has very pretty illustrations in this book though, so that's nice. I think part of my problem with this book is that I was not really connected to any of the characters, and it made me struggle to sort of care what happened with them, because I didn't. I think it also went a little bit too heavy on the religion. I know I kind of expect that in like vampire heavy books because there is that connection to like godly stuff, but like, this one was a little bit like, oh, the Messiah. Not for me. That just really didn't do it for me. So I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I just want to talk about something that really annoyed me about this book, but also it's a spoiler for this book, and it's also a spoiler for The Last of Us. So if you haven't read either, then please skip until I put this book down. Okay? Great. The end of this book and the end of The Last of Us are the same, right? It's the same. Like, the whole time, get her to the safe place. Yes, get them to the safe place. And now we're gonna kill them. That's how we save everybody, right? No. No, it's not. I didn't like the connection. Because it was fine in The Last of Us, I guess it worked, but it didn't work in this book for me. Anyway, this book annoyed me and I'm disappointed. So, what's new? Next up I read Half a War by Joe Abercrombie. This is the 3rd and final book in the Shattered Sea series. And this one follows some new characters as well as old characters from the previous 2 books, and is the conclusion of the war that we have been building up to. I did really like the new characters, and it was nice to see the sort of culmination of all the plotting that had been sort of woven into the previous books. I'm really trying not to spoil anything that happens in this book because everything that happens is very interconnected. So I can't really say anything about that, but I did guess who was behind the things that were happening, so there's that. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy this series, and I'm intrigued to read more from Joe Abercrombie. Next up I picked up Something is Killing the Children Volume 4. This was gifted to me by Kaz from Cats in Camera, and I am so happy to have read it. I really enjoyed this volume, and I wasn't really sure where it was going to go because volumes 1 to 3 are like a completed arc, and this volume actually features the backstory of the main character and how she sort of became this monster hunter and was welcomed into the House of Slaughter. I really liked how this was explained, and I really liked the setup of the order. Now, sorry, there's one character in this that's just a dick, and you just like have a very brief encounter with them and you're like, wow, you suck. Like, what? Ugh. And it sort of casts a shadow with previous interactions, or sightings, because you don't really interact with them before this book, but still, what a dick. Anyway, I really love Erica. I really just want to see more of this story. I just can't wait for more of it to be out. And I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finally picked up Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I'm really happy that I read this one, and I'm also really glad that I waited till Christmas because there is a very Christmassy scene in here. There's like a whole Christmas activity thing. This book is about a girl who grows up knowing that she is cursed and she brings bad luck wherever she goes, and she's cursed to die on her 12th birthday, I think. But somebody turns up out of the blue and offers her a way out. So she takes it naturally because she doesn't want to die, and she ends up in this world of magic and wonder, and it's just very whimsical and fun. I really love Fen the Magic Cat, and there's some other things that I really enjoyed about this. But I do have to say that Jupiter North would drive me batty. I am sorry. His character is infuriating. Talk. Give answers, please. So maddening. I probably would have punched that man if I was anywhere near him because, like, just answer the questions. Anyway, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I am very excited to read the next book. The next book that I read was The Wedding Proposal by John Swanseger. This is a very short romance about a woman whose boyfriend breaks up with her about a month before their wedding. It's way too late for her to get any of her deposits back, so she decides to give her wedding away to somebody who needs it. And it's about her sort of being the wedding planner for this other couple and sort of romancing the brother of the bride, and it's just very cute. I enjoyed it a lot and it made me laugh a couple of times, so that was good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I had a very exhausting day and it was just what I needed. Next up I picked up One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Time traveling sapphics on a train. I feel like that's the best way to describe this book. It's super random and super gay, and I loved it. This book is about a woman called August who moves to New York City and is just trying to sort of find her feet, and she happens to meet another woman on a train They sort of get together, but she only ever sees this woman on the train. And it turns out she can't leave the train because there is something going on. And that's all I really want to say, but like, if you like gay shit, then you should read this book because it's chock full of it. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next 2 books I'm going to talk about together because they were actually in the same book. I'll explain why in a minute. I picked this one up because I thought, oh, the name, it's hilarious. I had much regret, anyway. So these books are both by Leonard Delaney, and the first is Taken by the Tetris Blocks. It was a very short story about Tetris blocks coming to Earth, and they just like fit into people's natural lives, and this one woman decides that she's just gonna bang some Tetris blocks. I feel a bit scarred, but not quite as scarred as when I read the book that was attached to the end of this book, because the cover wasn't allowed to be on Amazon because they couldn't sell it, because it essentially was the planet Pluto with a penis on it, because it was pounded by Pluto. I only read this because it was attached to the other book, and I thought, oh well, I'll just read it, and it's only like 30 pages long, so you know, very short story again. Oh my god, this parody was awful. It was extremely bizarre, and it's like a weird play on Neil deGrasse Tyson, like the guy's name is like Tyson Neil deGrasse, or it's something ridiculous like that. Anyway, never did I think that I would read the words, "Fuck me up the astronomy." So both of those books made me very sad, and I rated them both 1 out of 5 stars. Speaking of books that made me sad, except for an entirely different reason, we have Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. Finally finished this one. This series is slowly getting read, and I love this book. I really enjoyed it, aside from the fact that it made me really sad, especially at the end. I love all of the old characters, I love the new characters, I love how they all fit together, and I just want them all to be happy, and I'm gonna be real sad if some badness happens to them, which I know it will, because of course it will, and like the end of this book had me on a cliffhanger. Except now I've got to read Tower of Dawn, and that's Kale's book, and I don't like Kale. So, I know I need to read it. It's fine, I will read it, but at the same time I'm not very happy about it, especially when I just want to follow these characters. I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. Realise I didn't actually say anything about that book. It's book 5 in the Throne of Glass series, and I liked it a lot. Next up, we have The Young Elites by Marie Lu. This is a book about a girl who survives this thing called the blood fever and ends up with some powers, which she finds out when she murders her evil dad. So it's essentially like a group of people who have survived this blood fever and have come out the other end with superpowers, and, oh, you know, the royalty that want to murder them all. Personally, the thing I like the most about this book is that the main character is kind of evil. Also, I really support her in her endeavours because, well, you know, she's been treated like crap her entire life, so why wouldn't you murder a few people? I just, you know. I didn't particularly like the rest of The Young Elites, which was part of the reason that I only give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like it could have been higher had I enjoyed any of the rest of them a little bit more, but I didn't, because I didn't really have that connection to them. So I'm definitely interested to continue this series and see where it goes next, because I liked Adelina as a main character. She does make some immature decisions, but like, given her backstory, you can kind of understand her thought processes, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, you would do that, so why not? So then we have the last book that was on my 2023 physical TBR, and that's Possessed by Nikki Valentine. And funnily enough, nothing could have possessed me to finish this book. I made it 17 pages in, and then I DNF'd it because the writing was incredibly immature. And not necessarily the writing. The writing was immature, but like the character, who was supposed to be, I think, like first year of uni level, like they're going out drinking, so I imagine at least 18, because it's in the UK. Oh, so immature. She's like met some twins and she was like, I heard twins were supposed to be like the opposites of each other, and I was like, what, are you 5? I just really found it difficult to get into this, and I was like, I'm not wasting my time pushing through this because everything that any of these characters say annoys me. So I DNF'd it. Maybe that's on me, maybe it would have been good had I persevered, but I didn't, so. Next up I read Reaper Flame by Holly Bloom. This is the 3rd and final book in the Lapland Underground series, and I really enjoyed it. I'm so mad that I kept putting it off. Why did I keep putting it off? I mean, I knew where it was going to start because there is a very large cliffhanger at the end of the 2nd book, and I was very nervous about where it was going to go from there puts the main character in a very different position, and it messes with all the relationships, and yeah. So I may have guessed where all the twists were going, and I'm not mad about it because it is what I wanted to happen. I really enjoyed all the characters and their dynamics with each other. I just love the Sevens. I would definitely reread that series. I realise I've not even just mentioned what this story is about. Essentially, a stripper assassin leaves this nasty guy, goes to work in the strip club, where she ends up in a reverse harem with a new gang, and, you know, a lot of fun and also murder all over the place. A lot of murder. It's great though, I really enjoyed this series, would highly recommend because all 3 books were really good, and you don't have to wait through the cliffhanger like I did and put it off. It's all good. Very good. And the last book that I read in December is the book that appeared on about 50 of my TBRs, and that's From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Are you surprised I read this? Because I am. I'm really surprised, even though I really enjoyed it. As soon as I started reading it, I knew I was going to enjoy it. And then I read like 260 pages, put it down for like a week, and then I just read the rest of it all in one go. This is a book about a woman called Poppy who has grown up knowing that she is the maiden, and she's this really special person in this religion, and she's not allowed to talk to people because she is this holy figure that is going to ascend when she turns 19. She doesn't really like being the maiden, so she goes off and does things like fighting these weird zombie type vampire creatures. I'm really not explaining this book very well, but I really enjoyed it. I found Poppy naive sometimes, and all of the twists and things were very obvious to me, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked where it went, and I just need to read the next one now because, yeah, everyone that said that I was going to enjoy this book, you were right. You were right. Well done. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like that was a great one to end the year on, so yay. And there we have it. Those are all the books that I read in December. If you want to hear about the Christmas books that I read, go check out the part 1 to this video, and if you don't, then don't. So if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!